All right, we're here with CZM, Quake legend. CZM, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, thanks.
So, I wanted to ask you, a couple of questions because someone like you come into an event like this with a lot of baggage. You come into an event like this with a lot of previous history, with a lot of experience. But I wanted to ask you, some of your thoughts of the state of Quake. Where you are today as a player, and where you think the scene is in general. So, yeah, okay. Well, let's just go ahead and start. So, let's start with first. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into gaming? How did you get into Quake specifically?
So I got into gaming when my uncle lived next door to me for a few years, and he had Doom 2 and several computers hooked up, so I played that and Heretic with him for a while. When Quake came out, I downloaded the shareware and started playing it online. I thought it was crazy that you could now play with 16 people at a time and play all sorts of different mods and make maps for it and things like that. And then after a couple of years of playing Quake, I realized I was pretty good, and I was antsy to start going to tournaments. This is around when I was like 13, 14. And by the time when I turned 16, or I was about to turn 16, I finally started going to Quake 3 tournaments. That was then the main game, and I started doing well at them. I won my first tournament, and then my team won several huge tournaments in the follow-up from that. And I trained really hard for a big tournament, Babbage's, in 2000, and I got 5th at that. And then since then, I've just been coming back every year, it seems, to whatever tournaments they hold.
So you started pretty young. How were you able to sort of rationalize that commitment to your family?
Commitment to my family, meaning? Well, the commitment to Quake to my family.
Exactly.
Gotcha. So my family always let me do whatever I want, basically, and I was doing well in school. And there were several times when I gave up gaming completely for a long period of time. Like when I went from middle school to high school, I gave up gaming for about a year, which also marked the transition from Quake 1 to Quake 3. And similarly, from high school to college, I gave up for about a year, and college to grad school. So they've seen me give it up. They've seen me live without it. They know I'm not addicted, and I am just doing it for fun, and it's kind of my competitive outlet. I stopped playing chess a long time ago. I don't do math competitions, things like that. I don't have an outlet, so Quake's kind of served that, and it's also let me travel around the world and meet a lot of people. So they've been very supportive of it all along, and there's a lot of criticism of people spending too much time playing games, but they've not directed me in how I spend my time at all.
So you mentioned that you've sort of been playing off and on. How is it that you've made such an impression on the community? How have you been able to maintain such a high standard of play and still compete?
I think it's mostly the hours that I banked when I was fairly young, the formative years, 13, 14. I got very good at Quake World, and when Quake 3 came out, I was immediately a top player. And just the hours I put in during high school really, really ingrained in me how to play the game well, I think. And, some people who learned later or learned at an older age don't necessarily have that banked experience so much. So when I come back after a few years break, all that experience just kind of comes back to me after a little bit, with the exception of this summer, but that's kind of another story. So you're sort of throwing out the idea, or you're sort of throwing out the theory, disregarding it completely, that these minor changes between games, the differences between OSP and CPMA, all these things that people complain about, they don't really exist because someone like yourself can come in, not play for a while, but still all their skill will trans over. Yeah, it transfers over once you master the technical aspects of the game. So there are several technical aspects to the game. There's being able to move around, being able to aim your opponent, knowing how they move, knowing how to dodge what they shoot at you, and then just knowing the layout of the map and where the items are. But then on top of that, there's a more free-flowing structure that all these games have in common, which is about occupying space, controlling space, interacting with the space that your opponent controls, knowing how to juke around corners with rockets. That all is independent of the game, and it's more just an awareness of space and the space that players control and how to read other players and control the map.
So you feel right at home with the CPMA mod then?
Not so much, because the CPMA mod recently, it's introduced a new command called XERP, or maybe it's not new, but it's newly discovered. And it allows players to aim with a lightning gun much better. So the lightning gun is the streaming weapon that does a lot of damage. And my aim is not particularly good this summer. And in particular, my lightning gun aim is really bad. So it kind of hurts me a bit when people can out lightning gun me 2-to-1. It makes it so I can't usually the lightning gun is the equalizer in the game. If you can force a fight where you have a health and armor advantage, the lightning gun, you can expect to come out on top because people tend to aim fairly similarly. Whereas now I need an excessive armor advantage in order to outbalance it. So Quake 3 in its current state is moving a bit away from the true controlling space, outmaneuvering your opponent, and it's more degenerating into a melee game based on getting into a shaft fight with your opponent and triking it out, because the rockets are the main weapon that emphasize control over your situation. The lightning gun's more just the name weapon.
Now, you didn't really do a whole lot in Quake 4, if anything at all.
Nothing. I played it for a week when it came out, and I thought it was really good actually. But that coincided with my senior year of high school, my senior year of college starting, so I decided not to play it at all.
So, is not playing Quake 4, was that more of just a matter of convenience and time, or did you? I think a lot of people have this idea that you didn't want to tarnish your reputation as this Quake 3 legend. You didn't want to come back into it. But was that the case, or was that not the case?
No, I think that I'd have done very well in Quake 4. I think it was a game that suited me very well. It was based on rail and rockets, as far as I can tell. And I was poised at the time in 04 and 05. I had been consistently the player who placed the highest in the most tournaments. And going into Quake 4, I'd have probably been the favorite to dominate it. And I've been talking to all sorts of teams about sponsorship setups and salaries and everything that would put me through the year. That year, 2006, was a particularly active one in Quake 4. They had tournaments all over the world. So I was actually kind of, revved up and ready to go with it. And I was thinking, oh, maybe I can take that on in school and everything else I'm doing at the same time. But then I had to apply to grad school and do all these other things, and I just didn't have any time to play Quake 4 whatsoever. But I'd have loved to play it if I could have taken a year off or something. And yeah, I think I'd have given it a good go.
But Quake 3's back now.
Yeah, Quake 3 conveniently comes back for me.
Seemingly comes back. A lot of people think that that's a step back for the community. What do you think?
No, I don't think it's necessarily a step back. I think that they're similar enough games, first of all, and they attract similar player bases. And for me, at least, my current computer, which is 5 years old now, I got it in 2003, September, it's not very good for Quake 4, so I couldn't actually practice it very much online. I don't think that it's really a step back, and I think now we're looking at, Quake Live, which is kind of Quake 3, the really pure FPS game produced in a massive way.
So you're excited about Quake Live then?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I don't know how much. I don't know if. I'm certainly not going to be the 13-year-old banking hours in it that I could have been 11 years ago. But I like that the rockets are now a very strong weapon again. So kind of the pure FPS elements are brought back into the mix. The control of space, control of the level, outmaneuvering your opponent, as opposed to just conditioning your aim, which comes down to going through the motions and isn't really an appealing activity to me.
So you mentioned grad school.
Yep.
Are you going to be concentrating on that and not Quake Live?
Yeah.
Okay.
This summer for these tournaments, I've been putting in maybe an hour half the days, 3 days out of 7 in a week or something like that, just late at night before I go to bed. But Quake Live, will be something similar, just something I play in the off time. But again, once I've conditioned the basic technical aspects of the game, which in a game like Quake Live hopefully will not take as much time because it'll be more rocket-based. Rockets are more about placement, and then Lightning Gun, which is more about playing your real lot and getting your reflexes toned. So I'm looking forward to that, yeah.